Nick Kroll, you are the creator and one of the stars of the Netflix animated series Big Mouth, which is a hilarious show. What made you think to yourself, you know what the world needs right now? A cartoon about kids going through puberty.
Mm. Um, I don't know if I thought about what the world needed. I think it was what I needed. And I created the show with my best friend from childhood, Andrew Goldberg, and Mark Levin and Jen Flackett, who are very talented husband and wife, writer, director team. They came to me with the idea for the show and about Andrew and I as kids, because I've known Andrew since I was 6 years old. He went on to become a writer for Family Guy, and I went on to do whatever it is that I've done. And it just immediately made sense. A show that was about the two of us, but really about what it was like for us to go through puberty. I was a very late bloomer. He hit puberty fast and hard. And it felt like, we were always best friends through that, but that it just felt like there were a lot of stories to tell that were really important to us at that age. And, like over 30 years later, or 25 years later, still very relevant to us, as well as kids now who might be going through puberty and feeling quite alone in the process.
And you also are doing the show with another one of your very good friends, John Mulaney. How did he come on board, and what's the genesis of your relationship with him?
John, we really just cast. We were looking for someone to play Andrew, and we went through a lot of different thoughts and ideas, and it was actually Mark and Jen and Andrew who were like, "Well, what about John?" And it all of a sudden was like, "Yeah, of course, he'd be perfect for this." So it was not from the insemination, but I use that term loosely in talking about puberty, but we just felt like he would be a great fit for the show. John and I have known each other since college. We were in an improv group together at Georgetown University, and stayed friends. And I moved to New York, and he graduated a few years later, and he moved to New York, and we just have been working together ever since. And really, the whole show is composed of almost every person in the cast is someone who's been someone I've worked with or been friends with for a long time, like Jason Mantzoukas. I've known from Upright Citizens Brigade in New York for many, many years. Jenny Slate, I met early on doing stand-up in New York. Jesse Klein, the same way. Fred Armisen and my Rudolph, I've become more friendly with over the last, a handful of years. Jordan Peele as well. He and I auditioned for Saturday Night Live the same year, as well as John. And we just, and we had shows on Comedy Central at the same time. So it really is a show composed of my friends who I've sort of made over the years doing comedy.
So on the show, there are a lot of crazy situations that you put these kids through about, uncomfortable things that happen, uncomfortable life moments that happen at the worst possible moment. I think probably the epitome of that is the Statue of Liberty episode, where Jesse, I guess the polite term is, becomes a woman during the field trip to the Statue of Liberty. Are any of these crazy things that were in the show based on something that happened to you or Andrew or someone else in real life?
Many of the situations are true. In fact, the story of Jesse getting her period at the Statue of Liberty is based on our friend from childhood, Liz, who in part was inspiration for the character of Jesse. She was our good friend, and she was very strong and smart and funny and a feminist, and became an early model for what we started to think of Jesse for. And when we told her about the show, she said, "Oh my God, I don't know, I probably never told you guys this, but when we were in 7th grade, I got my period for the first time on a class trip to the Statue of Liberty." And we immediately were like, "Oh my God, that's going in the show." And then from there, I was like, "Oh, it'd be funny to have a song called Everybody Bleeds, sung by this tampon that looks like Michael Stipe." That is, of course, where the flights of fancy come in. But we also had a friend who had sex with his pillow. Andrew did uh, orgasm. Andrew came in his pants when he danced with a girl. I didn't grow any pubic hair until high school. And there are many other. Those are the first ones that come to mind. But a lot of the stories come from me and Andrew, from our friends in elementary and middle school, or from other writers and situations that other people. I mean, that's the beauty of a show about puberty, is just literally everyone has gone through it and has stories to share.
And a lot of times they're just incredibly embarrassing.
Yeah.
So one of the most interesting characters on the show is the one that Jordan Peele, or should I say Oscar winner Jordan Peele, we have to say that now, I believe it's decreed by law, is the ghost of Duke Ellington, which is a great character, but also so random. Where did the idea come from to have this character?
Well, I remember visiting a house with my family growing up. I believe in kind of the Berkshires area that we were going to maybe rent or something like that. And I believe it was Cole Porter or Nat King Cole lived in that house. And so I remember very clearly there being a room that had all of his sheet music as the wallpaper. And there was just, it always stuck with me as an interesting thing. And when we were talking about the show and, what would be fun, like, why does this show have to be animated versus, why don't we do live action? I mean, there were a lot of reasons why, but it felt like, well, if we've got this show that's animated and we can do whatever we want, wouldn't it be fun to have a ghost haunt, Nick's house? And I just sort of was pitching it out, over email with the guys one day. And I was like, what if it was like, the ghost of Duke Ellington? And Andrew and Mark and Jen were all like, great, that's perfect, great. It just was sort of an immediate, like, oh, that makes sense. I grew up, I'm a big jazz fan. I grew up loving it. And then we kind of immediately thought like a guy like Jordan would be great to play it. And I believe we are currently Jordan Peele's only acting job, which brings me great joy that an Oscar winner's only acting work is as the voice of Duke Ellington on our cartoon.
That is something to be very proud of. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've always found really fun about the show is how it comes up in conversation with others. Like especially like when you're trying to describe it to someone who has not seen it, and you just got to drop all the pretenses and all the bullshit about politeness. And that's the trademark of it, is what might be considered risque. But I'm wondering, because even though it's on Netflix, has there been anything in there that you felt crossed a line, or was I guess too risque or inappropriate for what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, we thought, we're doing an animated show and it's on Netflix, so even on network you can get away with more animation wise than you can live action. And then the fact that we're on Netflix, where there are no sponsors, there really are no rules about what you can and can't do. We, I think, had embraced to the best of our abilities. We ask ourselves in the room all the time, like, what are we doing here? Like, why can't we do that? X, Y, or Z. And we had a scene in season 1. It's, I think, in the Requiem for a Wet Dream episode, where Andrew won't masturbate because he's got this new girl that he likes, and he doesn't feel comfortable masturbating to her because he really respects her. So he decides, but he doesn't want to not masturbate to another person because then he feels like he's cheating on her. So he's got all this buildup, and they're at the science fair, and everything is going bananas. And there's a moment where the Hormone Monster, Andrew has this thing called the Hormone Monster, which is that id that sits on your shoulder and tells you to masturbate or get in a fight or lose your temper or whatever. The Hormone Monster has sex with the severed head of Garrison Keillor from A Prairie Home Companion. Netflix was fine with that, which was amazing. There was a bit right around there that we cut that Netflix thought maybe crossed the line, which was there was another hormone monster, Coach Steve, and at some point Nick's hormone monster, who's a very sick old hormone monster. And I know this is going to be recorded and put onto YouTube, but I think I'm going to say it anyway. That hormone monster takes a thermometer out of his sick little dick. And it was, Netflix was like, guys, we think maybe you have to cut that. And we were like, yeah, we agree. It's too gross. It was just too disgusting. But they were fine with the Garrison Keillor thing. To their credit, Netflix has been amazing at letting us really push the envelope, because there's a lot of great shows and great things out there. And I think people, I hope, people like the show because it is kind of like no holds barred. But simultaneously, I think with real kind of heart and sweetness and a real message. And we are very well aware that that kids might end up watching this. So as dirty as it is, that we want the messages and what can be learned from these shows to be responsible.
Oh man, that's great. And I forgot about that Garrison Keillor thing, which just brought me so much happiness because I never cared for Garrison Keillor, and all my friends are. I have so many friends that are nuts about him, and I'm just like, I don't get it.
Right, and then it came out because he got kind of caught in the Me Too movement, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, you guys got him!" And we were like, "We had no idea. We wrote that joke a year and a half ago and animated it over a number of years." So, yeah.
You're currently working on season 2, correct?
Yeah.
What can we? I know you can't tell us everything, but what sort of thing might we could we expect from season 2?
Oh, I mean, I would say even more insane. Kind of, we really, we've worked hard at kind of keeping with what we were doing before the show came out, but also continuing to grow and evolve. I mean, it's an interesting thing because it's animation, so theoretically these kids could stay in place forever, unlike live action like the Wonder Years or something like that, where every year Fred Savage is getting older. But we're also interested in these kids continuing to evolve. So Nick starts to figure out who his hormone. We see at the end of season 1 his hormone monster. Jay's saga with pillows and love affairs continue on. There's a big new character that gets added in season 2, and I will just say it's based around the concept of shame. There's a shame wizard. We're adding a shame wizard, and because I think that's also a huge part of puberty, is the feeling that that goes along with desire and awkwardness, is the concept of shame, and I think it's a major part of people's evolution and growth, for good and bad, that shame comes into the picture.
So
Nick might get a little girlfriend situation, and Gina Rodriguez plays Nick's romantic interest in season 2, which was great. She's crazy talented, really amazing.
Oh, that's going to be great. Is Andrew still going to be questioning some things about his sexuality?
Andrew won't as much, but one or two of our other characters might be figuring out their sexuality a little more and continue to evolve. I mean, that's the beauty of this particular age, is in middle school and into high school, kids are really trying to figure out who they are and what their sexual orientations are, what they're interested in, what's okay, who they want to be with, what they want to do with those people, what they want to do on their own. And so it's a period of life when the stakes are really high, and people are really trying to figure out who they are, and the identity and choices that you make at 13, 14, 12, become really formative in the person you end up becoming.
So, Big Mouth is being submitted for this year's Emmys for Outstanding Animated Program. When you submit for the ballot, you choose one episode as the one that you will be judged on, because that's all that matters in this business. And I was wondering, do you know which episode you're going to be submitting for the ballot this year?
I think for writing, I believe we're submitting the head push episode. I believe I might be wrong, but I believe that's the one we've submitted for writing, and I think it's episode 8 of season 1, and it's the story of Nick's sister Leah has a party at her house, and there's different levels of. It's really an episode about one. It's partly it's about consent on some level. Which we wrote and conceived of and animated well before all of the, again, the Me Too movement took hold. But it ended up sort of being quite relevant in the conversation, which is like, what's okay? How do you communicate what you want to do or what someone else wants to do? Leah is pressured into hooking up. She hooks up with a boy who she likes, and then he wants to get her to do more than she wants, and he gives her a head push. And so it's really an episode about how she deals with it, how the kids deal with it, how kids have conversations about what they're comfortable with, how far people want to go. Sometimes people want to go further, but their bodies are saying no, or their bodies are saying yes, and their minds are saying no. And there's an extended Seinfeld homage at the end. So I believe that's the episode that we've submitted.
For both writing and the animated category?
Oh, that's a good question. I know for writing, because I just looked at it. I'm not sure what we're submitting. I think we submitted that for writing. I'm not sure what episode we're submitting for animation. And then for me and Maya, I believe we submitted for voice acting. And I believe for me, it's episode 2. It's the Statue of Liberty episode, because I voice Nick, Lola, the Hormone Monster, the Statue of Liberty, a Polish janitor, a ladybug. I think that might be it for that episode. But there's a number of terrible, terrible voices that I do.
They're all wonderful.
Thank you.
They're all wonderful. And Maya is good because she's playing both Nick's mom and the female Hormone Monster.
Yes.
Which is great.
We originally just hired Maya to play my mom on the show, and as we started writing season 1, we were like, well, the girls have to have a Hormone Monstress, and we sort of thought about different people, and then we're like, oh, we have literally the most talented voice actor, talented person in show business, but specifically how amazing she is in that regard, and we were like, hey, how about this? And she jumped in and was great, and it's really one of the breakout performances and elements of season 1 is Maya as the Hormone Monstress. It's just unstoppable.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. Big Mouth is on Netflix. Do you know when season 2 is going to be dropping?
I believe similar time to last year, end of September-ish. I don't know exactly the date, but my gut is we're prepping for, early fall.
All right.
Area.
Well, regardless, we are very excited about it. And Nick, we wish you all the best this Emmy season.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.